Alright, a little video. Picked this up at a train show. It's a older Bachmann. Only paid about $5. I'll show you what you do to get these running good. A lot of times you'll find them pretty cheap, but they're not tore up. A lot of times the wheels bind, they don't run good, so people don't use them. So show you what we do to this one to get it ready. Some new couplers, got rid of the repeatos, clean trucks, and a little bit of weight to bring it up to standard, and it's ready to go. Well, the first thing we want to do is get the floor off of the body here. I'll take a thin knife, work between the body and the flooring. This one I previously had undone, and we can see we're a little bit tight. It gave more of a fight when I first took it apart, but we'll work on that later. You see that's awful snug. Once we get the floor off, we'll remove the screws, see what our kingpins look like underneath. This one here has the repeatos. I'm going to change it to the microtrains. And you see, even with the screw out, that's tight, and that's a lot of the problem why these don't run good. A lot of times the kingpin, when they put the screws in, will split. And once I pull the wheel, go ahead and put the screw back in. And we'll just touch up against the kingpin. And depending on how that pin looks, whether we have any splits or not, determine whether I need to remove this or we can modify the microtrain. So get this side off, we'll see what this kingpin looks like. We'll go on to our next step. Okay, after getting the wheels off, I went ahead and reinserted both screws. Looking along the kingpins, I don't see any sign of cracking or splitting, so it came out pretty good. I did notice looking through that the one kingpin, there was a little bit of yellow, and that's from the base plastic. So the wheels are tight and rubbed the paint off. That's probably why it wasn't running good, because of the tight fit. Another thing I check is the weight. A lot of times the weight is not centered up inside. This one here, you can see a gap where it was offset when it was put in. So what I usually do, we'll go ahead and cut this out. That way we can reset the weight down in the floor where it should be. Once I pop that off, go ahead and trim this down with a knife, get rid of this little stub. That way we can get this nice and flat, and we'll check, see if our floor itself is straight. Once you pull this weight off, that'd be a good time to check to make sure the weight itself is flat, so that when you re-glue it in, it won't twist the floor. This one's flat. I'll go ahead and clean up these two little nubs so we can remount that. Keep your fingers back. Nice little back and forth rocking. Get part way through. Come around the other side, work that. Get that nice and flat. And we'll go ahead and do the other side. Okay, super glued that down and give it a few minutes to set. You see our weight now is setting nice and flat inside the recess. Give that a few minutes to set and we'll go to our next part. Now once my weight has dried, I noticed it was a little bit on the tight side when I was taking it apart. And a little tighter than what I want. Won't quite set down, so take a little sanding stick and just clean up some of the paint. I know some of the Bachmanns, they like to put the paint on a little bit thick. And the corners in particular make it a little bit tighter than what you want, so we'll just go real light. At the same time, we don't want it excessively loose. And just do a couple test fittings here and there. Make sure the floor will set. Alright, so I think we've taken off enough. Still got a good snug fit, but it'll still set flat. So next part would be to put our trucks on, and since I'm going from Rapido to a knuckle coupler, I've got microtrains. Now the Bachmann kingpins are a little bit oversized. So if your kingpins are good and you don't want to cut them off, then we'll have to open up the microtrains just a little bit. So for that, I use a step bit. And we're not going to put any pressure on, but just turn it, and eventually we'll get that opened up enough, and we'll be able to fit it over the stock kingpin. Now if you don't have a step bit like this, step drill, a 5/32 is what I'm using here, and just let the drill work itself. If we press it too hard, then we have a chance of breaking the truck. Clean out any excess. And if you have to, go ahead and put it on the other side, just get rid of any little extra chips. And at that point, we'll be able to pass over the kingpin. So we'll do the other truck. Be right back. Okay, I got both of the trucks, opened up the holes to fit the Bachmann kingpin. So before I put the screws in, I'll set it down there, make sure we got plenty of movement. We don't want it tight, and that was our original problem. Setting it on there, I found that on both ends we were a little bit tight on here, wouldn't allow the truck to rock forward and back. So took a little hobby knife and just lightly skinned off the front edge to give me extra clearance. That way we can travel back and forth without binding. And that leaves a little bit of plastic showing. And you take just a black felt marker. Most of this is going to be covered up by the truck anyway. So we'll just darken that up so it's not quite as obvious. I already did the other end. So once we collar that in, go ahead and run the screw in on this side. Get rid of that. And the idea is to tighten it in, not too snug, because we still want to have some movement on the truck. So save time, and you probably don't want to watch me weighing everything. I put all these on a digital scale. Found out I was underweight, so taking some 1/4-inch nuts, I found that I'll need to add 4 of these to bring us up to weight. So go ahead and you can use double stick tape. I use super glue. I'll just put 2 little spots on there so it'll hold them in place, but if I need to break them loose, shouldn't be any problem. So go ahead and weigh these in and bring us up to the weight. Okay, got my 1/4-inch nuts glued in. I just use 2 spots of glue on each and then to the board. That way if I need to break it off, it's not totally glued down. And at this point we're ready to put the shell back together. Earlier it was a little tight, so I did some light sanding. Line up corners. Sometimes just need to give it a little press. Get down here into a corner. Slide that on in. So at this point you're ready to run, or if you prefer the metal wheels over the plastic, you can change that out, but at this point we're ready for a test run. Alright. My layout has a little hill to it, so I just set the cars on the hill and let go. And if they roll pretty good, then we're ready to go.